Box score. The deflated tone of Geoff Collins' voice and the stone-cold look on his face dimly painted the darkened picture of what his Temple team had just endured for most of the previous 3 hours. A cherry-and-white senior day underdog story just had its fruitful initial chapters dissected and jammed into the paper shredder by an overwhelming force of football nature. "That was a tough loss and we didn't send the seniors out the way we wanted to," Collins said. Tough is just one way to describe the shellacking Temple absorbed at the hands of No. 15 and conference powerhouse UCF, as a 107-second quarter lead evaporated into an ugly 4,519 defeat at cloud-covered Lincoln Financial Field. See observations. The loss dropped the Owls to 56 on the season and leaves bowl eligibility hanging in the balance during next week's trip to Tulsa. UCF, on the other hand, improved to a perfect 100 on the season and tightened its grip on the Group of 5 berth in a New Year's Six bowl game. "That was just a tough loss against a really good football team," Collins said. "You can't turn the ball over 5 times and expect to win games, especially against a team that is that good and very talented offensively, obviously." Quote, "The Knights came into South Philly sporting the highest scoring offense in the entire nation with an average of 48.6 points, presenting a challenge the Owls knew would be formidable. But for the first 18:35 of the contest, the Owls answered every bell. They had a 107 advantage thanks to a nifty scramble by redshirt junior quarterback Frank Noodle, who found space and floated a perfect ball to senior wideout Keith Kirkwood in the back of the end zone. But from there, the Temple upset wagon plummeted off the cliff as the Knights and their turbocharged defense caught fire. Thanks in large part to 3 Temple turnovers, 2 Noodle picks and a Reichwell-Armstead fumble, deep in Owls territory, the Knights reeled off 24 points in a span of 9-1-1 to take a commanding 3,110 lead that silenced Temple's pulse. Noodle's 2 picks in that span were ugly, especially the second one, which was thrown into triple coverage and easily picked off by UCF's linebacker Kyle Gibson. Noodle, who would go on to throw 2 more picks in the second half and 4 total in the game, was extremely hard on himself afterward as Temple's overwhelming theme of mediocre QB play throughout the season lingered on. "I just think I made a lot of mistakes and bad decisions with the ball. It's very uncharacteristic of me," said Noodle, who took over as the starter 2 weeks ago against Navy and entered Saturday's contest with just 3 interceptions on 103 attempts as compared to 6 TDs. "Obviously, I put the team in a bad situation. I put the defense in a bad situation. I didn't play great today. It's hard to win a game when the quarterback throws 4 interceptions. I take that loss totally on me. I'd rather die than let those seniors down like that again." Noodle's mistakes set Temple's defense on a platter for UCF quarterback Mackenzie Milton and crew. Milton whitewashed the Owls for 208 yards on 16 completions and 4 two-counts. He also ran for 23 yards and another score for a combined 5 TDs on the day. Not that it was put in the best situations, but the overwhelmed Temple defense just didn't have an answer. While Noodle professed his apologies to the team in the locker room, Collins lamented on the fatty miserable second quarter that saw Temple get outgained 122 yards to 57 yards when asked if it was the turning point. "I think that's pretty easy to say, yeah?" Collins said, looking into the seniors' eyes before the game, how much hope and how much excitement they had, and then conversely at the end, the hurt and the pain. "I just told them to take their time. No one should be in a rush to get out of that locker room." As painful as Saturday may have been, there is still a glimmer of sunshine as the Owls can gain the bowl eligibility they've been yearning for with a win next week at 29 Tulsa. The Owls could still be selected for a bowl game with only 5 wins, but a bowl is more likely to select a 5-win team with more of a pedigree and from a bigger conference. Of course, there is a chance even a 6th win could get the Owls nowhere. Remember the '66 team from 2014 that was left heartbroken with no bowl invite? Despite a 29 record, Tulsa is no gimme for Temple. The Golden Hurricanes feature senior running back D'Angelo Brewer, the conference's leader in rush yards for a tailback with 126.2 yards per game and 1,262 total rushing yards. And Tulsa just hung tough at South Florida last week, losing only by a 2,720 decision. The Owls say the page has already been turned to Tulsa and they know what's at stake. "We just want to go out on a good note," senior safety Sean Chandler said. "We definitely want to get to a bowl game. This week is going to be my last game. But most importantly, we want to get to the bowl game and send each other out on a good note. Every week, we talk about going 10 every week. That never changes. Collins said. "I think everybody knows what's on the line for next Saturday, so we aren't trying to make it bigger than that." Quote, "Seniors say goodbye." Saturday marked the last home game for a studded senior class that includes Chandler, DeSherry Finch, DB Artrell Foster, WR Adonis Jennings, WR Keith Kirkwood, DL Jacob Martin, FB Nick Sharga and DL Julian Taylor. One more win will give this group of seniors 32 wins, which would be the most for a class in school history. One-handed Wonderouch star linebacker Shaquem Griffin is an incredible story of perseverance and triumph. Born with a painful defect that left burning sensations shooting through his left hand, Griffin had that hand amputated when he was 4 years old. But he never gave up on his football dream and overcame all obstacles to become one of the premier defensive players in the nation. He starred on Saturday with 3 tackles, a forced fumble and a beautiful over-the-shoulder interception. An amazing talent and story. Box score: Charleston, South Carolina. Temple players hugged each other in a circle, jumped around and chanted in celebration of their latest early season tournament title. Owls coach Fran Dunphy's happiness was tempered by the knowledge his team has a long road ahead before seeing if their fast start will pay off in March. Shiz Alston Jr. scored 14 points including 4 clinching foul shots as Temple defeated Clemson 6,760 to win the Charleston Classic on Sunday night. "This will make Thanksgiving taste a little bit sweeter," Dunphy said. "But there is a long way to go. Still, it was a historic start for Temple 30, which had never before won the first 3 games of a season away from home. Their Charleston victories include wins over a pair of Power 5 opponents in Auburn of the Southeastern Conference and Clemson of the Atlantic Coast Conference. And it was their second straight early season tournament win after taking the NIT season tip-off event a year ago. "It's a great way to start the season," said Obianush Onya, who scored 12 points and was named the event's most outstanding player. "We've worked all off-season for this." Temple used an 187 run that spanned both halves to gain control. Josh Brown scored 13 points and had 2 of his 3 three-pointers in that stretch. And when he knocked his final long-range basket with 13:02 remaining, the Owls were up 5,036 and on their way to the victory. The Tigers' 41 cut things to 6,056 on Shelton Mitchell's driving layup with 51 seconds to go. Clemson had the chance to make it even tighter when Marquise Reed stole the ball with 50 seconds left, but Dante Grantham's quick 3 was off the mark. Quinton Rose hit 2 foul shots for Temple and Clemson could not catch up. The Owls got a measure of Charleston-flavored revenge on Clemson, which topped Temple 7,672 to win this title in 2008. The Tigers were playing in their 3rd Charleston final. They lost to UMass in 2013. Alani Moore too also scored 12 points for Temple, while Rose finished with 10 points and 11 rebounds. Mitchell led Clemson with 16 points. Reed had 14 points for the Tigers, 11 of them in the second half. "We just got a little careless, a little excited and sped up," Clemson coach Brad Brownell said. "Big picture Temple, if the Owls can play like this, expect them to make plenty of noise in the American Athletic Conference this fall." Temple defeated Auburn of the Southeastern Conference to make the finals, then out-hustled and out-muscled Clemson to win the tournament title. The Tigers were off-kilter in the middle of the game, often failing to finish good looks near the basket. Clemson's 6'9" forward Elijah Thomas struggled to make an impact down low with 6 points. The Tigers will need more, much more, from Thomas to compete. Temple chant. The Owls had a deep, strong chant they used to enter the court in all 3 games and did it as they left. When Anish Onya was asked what they were saying, he smiled and declined to detail it. "We'd like to keep that between us," he said. "Is that movie funny?" Man Bill Murray, who has a home in Charleston, was at the TD Arena to the tournament finals. Murray routinely pops up at area events and had on a zip-up vest with a Clemson Tiger paw on it. Charleston recap. The game of the final day had to be Ohio's 4-overtime, 9,694 victory over Indiana State in the 7th-place game. The Bobcats were down 18 points in the second half and 8 in the second OT before Mike Laster's bucket in the final extra period gave them the lead for good. Old Dominion defeated Dayton 7,567 to take 5th, while Auburn outlasted Hofstra 8,978 for 3rd. Up next, Temple plays at LaSalle on Sunday. Clemson returns home to face Texas Southern on Friday night. Box score for the first 18:35 of Saturday afternoon's Senior Day game at the cloud-covered Lincoln Financial Field. Temple had a pulse that was beating proudly. Here were the underdog Owls, leading UCF, the No. 15th team in the nation, 107, and punching away at the Knights' undefeated record, then the highest-scoring offense in the entire country caught fire and flatlined any pulse the Owls had. UCF, which came into the contest averaging 48.6 points, reeled off 24 straight points at the end of the first half and proceeded to blow away the Owls, 4,519. The loss dropped Temple to 56 on the season and leaves bowl eligibility hanging in the balance with next week's game at Tulsa. While bowls can select teams with less than 6 wins, they may be more inclined to select teams with more prominent names, and from more prominent conferences. Conference-leading UCF is now 100 on the season and has lined itself up as the likely group of 5 inches participant in this year's New Year's Six Bowls, and UCF asserted dominance quickly and surgically Saturday at Temple's expense. The overwhelming theme of Temple's lackluster season has been mediocre. Some may say that's even too polite a term. Quarterback play. It started with redshirt sophomore Logan Markey, who had his moments, but ultimately couldn't keep the job. The reins went to redshirt junior Frank Noodle, who stabilized the position for 2 weeks in wins over Navy and Cincinnati. UCF crumpled up that stability and chucked it out onto I-95 Saturday. Noodle endured an ugly afternoon that saw him go 17 for 40 for 201 yards, 2 counts and 4 interceptions. His 2 first-half picks deep in his own territory were backbreakers that enabled the high-powered Knights offense to get on the fast lane to the end zone against an overmatched Temple defense. His second quarter pick into triple coverage to UCF's Kyle Gibson was just ugly. There was nothing but white jerseys around. Combine those picks with Reichwell Armstead's fumble deep in his own territory in the first half and it was a recipe for disaster that buried Temple's upset chances. You can't turn the ball over 3 times that deep against the No. 15 team in the land and hope the defense can hold the levee together. If the Owls wanted any chance of pulling the upset Saturday, they had to play as pristine a game as possible. Instead, the stains were aplenty. Hence the final score. UCF star linebacker Shaquem Griffin is a fantastic player and an even more amazing story of human perseverance. Born with a birth defect that caused severe, burning pain in his left hand, Griffin had that hand amputated when he was 4 years old. But his dream of playing football never wavered and he's worked his way to being one of the premier defensive players in the country. The 2016 AAC Defensive Player of the Year, Griffin was all over the field Saturday with 3 tackles, a forced fumble and his second career interception. The pick would have been an excellent play for someone with 2 hands, let alone a one-handed player, as Griffin tracked a Temple receiver down the field and made an over-the-shoulder snag and then returned it for 22 yards. Next stop, the NFL. What a story. What a player. While Temple's offensive effort was ugly, the Owls' defense, while having its back against the wall more often than it should have, didn't have many answers Saturday. Sure, it's always going to be a monumental task against the most powerful offense in the country. But the Owls' defense was battered by UCF quarterback Mackenzie Milton and crew. Milton went 16 for 23 for 208 yards and 4 TDs. He also rushed for 23 yards and a TD. At one point in the second quarter, Milton rushed untouched up the gut for 15 yards on 3-yard and 13. It signified the issues with the Owls' defense is not a single Owl was in Milton's zip code. Milton dazzled while the Temple defense fizzled. Random take of the day: Temple's black helmets, black jerseys and cherry pants look sharp. Really sharp. Sorry, traditionalists. There were 2 bright spots for Temple on a figuratively and literally dark day. Senior Adonis Jennings hauled in 2 balls for 88 yards, including a 74-yard TD pass in the third quarter. It was the Owls' longest play from scrimmage this season. Redshirt junior running back David Hood, who was awarded the No. 1 jersey this week by his teammates, a weekly rotating reward for toughness and leadership, carried the ball 12 times for 81 yards, including a hard-nosed 33-yard gain down the sideline in the second quarter when he shrugged off tacklers left and right. He made the most of his touches as the Owls featured back Saturday. Don't be surprised to see him featured again next week. With a game that was basically over by halftime, a highlight of the second half was the fan flex cam that had Hulk Hogan's Real American theme playing in the background. That brought perhaps the biggest cheers from the announced crowd of 25,877. Next week's season finale at 29 Tulsa is no gimme, by any means, for Temple. It's always tough for a young team like the Owls to travel halfway across the country, even more so with the pressure of bowl eligibility lingering overhead. But the Golden Hurricane hung tough at South Florida this past Thursday, losing only by a 2,720 margin. In the same environment, Temple fell by 36 points earlier in the year. And Tulsa features senior running back D'Angelo Brewer, the conference's leader in rush yards for a tailback with 126.2 yards per game. Navy QB Zach Abbey leads the conference in rushing per game with 150.2 yards and 1,262 total rushing yards. A challenge looms for a Temple defense that will still be licking its wounds.